Here we have Drew Hendry. He's our SNP candidate for our district. Would you just be able to tell us, first of all, a little bit about yourself, Drew, if you don't mind, and then what motivates you to run for office in the UK Parliament?
Yeah, of course. Well, I didn't originally start out in politics. I worked in business and run my own company back in the day, which has been transferred largely to employee ownership now. I've worked in industry and in retail before, and for the past, since 2007, I've either been a councillor or MP for Inverness, Nairn, up in Strathspey. Of course, during the election campaign, I'm not an MP. What first got me into the political situation was I was looking at what was affecting people round about me. And the issues of fairness, investment, and just opportunity have always been things that motivated me. So, when I was a council candidate, it was about things like, why haven't we got decent bins here? Why haven't we got things like that? And the more you get into this, the more you realise there are bigger things you can tackle. And then as you go forward, you start to see some of the causes. So when it came to putting myself forward for Parliament, what I wanted to do was build on some of the quite big achievements we'd managed through being a councillor and council leader in terms of bringing investment to the Highlands, and go and see if we could unblock some of the blockages and do even more with that. And of course, being an SNP MP, I believe one of the best ways that we can do that in the future is to make sure that we have all the powers here in Scotland to make the decisions over our future, and we can emulate other countries. And yes, we'd make some mistakes, but we'd be able to make our own choices about our future as an independent country. So those were the things that motivated me to get involved and put myself forward for being an MP, just to try and bring some fairness into lives for communities, unleash some of the potential, and of course, deal with things now like the cost of living crisis, the fact that we've got very, very high energy costs. Those are the kinds of things that I find that are important to people. As I say, I think I've got a long-term solution for that, for us to get control of our own future. But I think in the short term, we need to go and press the UK government to reverse some of the cuts that they've been making, so that we can reinvest in our communities.
Okay, can I just add to that? Thanks for that. Can I just add to that? So what also motivates you, or rather, how do you see Scotland's place in the world when with the UK Parliament? You're speaking about local issues, how you got into that, which I get, and that's obviously probably the route that most people take. But now you have been an MP and stuff. What would be your kind of vision for a future Scotland, as it were?
Well, I want to see Scotland rejoin the European Union. Here in the Highlands, we've benefited disproportionately, I must say, from EU funding over the years. There are stretches of road and bridges in our community and in this constituency, and lots and lots of other projects, both community-wide and other things, that have been part funded or fully funded through EU funds over the decades. And I think that's something that we're missing. But it's more than that. I think we're missing our place in Europe as European citizens. That ability for our young people to travel, work and live and study abroad. And we're also losing a lot of people who would be coming here to support our care industry, for example, to work in that sector, to work in the tourism industry and hospitality industry, to work in the NHS. So a big priority for me would be for us to be able to rejoin the European Union. And obviously the only vehicle that's available for people to vote for that at the moment is the SNP, because the other main parties are all, the Labour Party, the Tories and the Lib Dems, are all fully subscribed to Brexit and trying to make Brexit work, whatever that means. So that would be, an immediate priority. As I said, there are things around the cost of living that are, absolutely vital and urgent to people. Energy costs, the cost of food, again, through Brexit, that's gone up more than a quarter over the past couple of years. When people get their shopping bills, they really feel that. And of course,
yeah,
they've seen the mortgages rise too, through the disastrous mini budget. So those are, kind of key priorities, I think. But going forward, I think Scotland can do much better, making its own choices into the future. We wouldn't be at the mercy of those kinds of issues, and we'd be able to more effectively take into account local views. It's not to say I think, anybody's brilliant at doing that just now, because I think there's a long way to go to make sure communities are fully involved and recognised. And that goes from, the council, through the Scottish Government, and definitely through the UK Government, who really just don't seem to care what's going on here. And they put us right to the bottom of the list of funding, where we used to be at the top of the list under our EU funding.
Yes, that's very true. Well, thank you for that, Drew. Okay, so question 2. I'm sure you will agree that the infrastructure in Lochaber is in desperate need of improvement. Where will you find the funding to do so, and how do you think you can affect the change needed when others before you have failed to do so for so long?
Well,
Infrastructure.
I think my track record in infrastructure actually tells its own story. When I was,
I'm sorry, I'm talking about here specifically,
Yeah.
the hospital in our road.
Exactly so, and I think it's entirely irrelevant that you've got projects that have been on the blocks for so long.
Yeah.
And if I can give you an example of where I've already made a difference, and I think it's relevant to the question you've made about Belford Hospital improvements in the 82 and getting the link road sorted and all those kinds of things. When I was leader of Highland Council, the what was called the Inverness bypass, or what became the Westlink, had been on the blocks since 1974. Now we got that off the blocks, we pushed it through, we had to do a lot of work. I had to work cross-party all of the time to try and get that thing through, but we delivered that Westlink, and anybody who comes to Inverness now can see the physical construction of that is there. And I think that we need to put the same energy to get these things that have been on the blocks for years off the blocks. The Belford Hospital, for example, is something that's been kicking around for far too long. Whether it be under Labour, the Lib Dems, or the early on, or the SNP, it's been too long sitting there. The NHS board have really failed to get that prioritised. I'm pleased to see that's now in the Scottish Government plan, and we need to now move forward to that planning stage so that we can take advantage of some of the ability to get, if you've got a shovel-ready project, sometimes it's more able to get funding because it's higher up the scale of being ready than other projects that might not be. So I would use some of my experience in doing that to that project and others. I could rhyme off half a dozen, from the Inverness flood relief scheme to the that I've dealt with in the past, where we've had to go and get money for these things, and we've been successful in doing that. There are many, many projects, and of course, one of the biggest ones, which is now being a benefit to Lochaber, is that the work I did on Gigabit City, which levered in £20 million of private finance to increase the connectivity in Inverness. Now that's released public funds that can now be used. And I believe the plan is that they'll be used for the Corin ferries. That £20 million, it's in public funds that will be used for that. So there are ways and means of doing different things, but it means working across boundaries. It means working across different political parties. I've had to engage with Scottish Government ministers. I've had to engage with UK Government ministers, with people of different parties to get support. And that's what I would continue to do. And I think it's important to do that for Lochaber, because there is an issue there where Lochaber hasn't had the kind of detailed attention in terms of infrastructure that it really deserves. And I think we need to light a fire under that.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that, Drew. I mean, being here over 20 odd years now, and it gets busier every year, and it's good to see more and more people coming here. But it's just, as you probably know, we get deadlock here in Fort William sometimes. You're actually probably just as easy going to Inverness, and you are going 5 miles into town.
Well, if it's comfort for your listeners and viewers, I've experienced that myself in real time.
Yeah, it's much like being back down south again.
When I was leader of the council, and since then, so I've been in the traffic with you, and I understand exactly what people are feeling around that. And it's not just the 82 at Fort William. This is all the way down the road, but through Loch Lomond as well, where you've got big HGVs on there. So the way down to Tarbuck, all of these things are important to look at and deal with, and these are the things I'd like to give focus to.
Okay, thanks very much, Drew. Okay, next question. What do you think is your strongest policy in your election pledge?
Well, I think the most important policy that I'm dealing with for people locally is the Highland Energy Rebate campaign. Now, this is the situation where if you knock on any door and ask people how they feel about their energy bills, I pretty much guarantee, obviously there's some people who don't have noticed, but pretty much guarantee that most of us have noticed a big jump over the past few years in our energy bills. And when you drill down into that, you find a level of unfairness that is, it's serious. So, for example, you and I and everybody else that, lives here are paying for our electricity standing charges 50% more than people in London. And yet we have a far colder, windier climate. The average mean temperature for London, for example, every year is 16 degrees, and Skye and Lochaber, it will be around 9 degrees. So we have a colder climate, we have older housing stock, and so therefore we already have higher bills, but then we're paying for the electricity on the standing charge, whether we use it or not, every day to a rate that's 50% higher than London. Now, that's important, again, for two other reasons. One, we have the highest levels of fuel poverty and extreme fuel poverty in the Highlands, but we also produce more than 4 times the electricity, that we need to use for ourselves. So we find ourselves as an electricity exporter, yet paying through the nose for our electricity unfairly. So the Highland Energy Rebate Campaign is to say, oh, hold on a minute. We need to make sure that we've got a mechanism that can be used that puts some money back in the pockets of people who are paying through the nose for this, because it's patently unfair. The good news is in that campaign that I haven't found anybody who disagrees, including in the UK government. But what we need is action on that. So I'm trying to get everybody behind this campaign to make sure that we can get some relief for those people who will be building up big energy debts, who are already struggling to pay their bills, or indeed probably take money out of their savings or other things that they would do to try and cope with that. So the Highland Energy Rebate Campaign is probably the biggest issue where I think we can make a big difference very quickly. But there's obviously a whole host of other things that I'd like to see done.
Cool. Well, that does sound interesting. Good. I'll have a look into that myself, because I haven't even really heard of it. So I'll have a look into that. Thank you very much, Drew. Okay. And lastly, why should people vote for you, Drew?
I think people should vote for me because if you look at what I've been doing since being elected, either as a councillor, council leader, or as a member of parliament, you'll see that I've been invested in communities. I've been working particularly with rural and disadvantaged communities to see that people are treated more fairly. We do have a lot of opportunity, and that opportunity that is often taken away from us or stifled because we basically need to stand up for it. I've been able to do that in all of the communities I've worked with up until now. So, for example, I've been representing like Lagan and Boatgarden and Fort Augustus for many years. And we've been able to make some real difference in communities like that over the years, and many, many more in the rural constituency parts that I've represented to date. I think we do need to have a focus on Lochaber in particular. I think there are many issues there. There's a fantastic opportunity with the place. There's a real buzz about it. We know we've got a great community there. So what I'd like to do is try and bring everybody together. As I say, using my track record, working across business, working across community groups, working across parties, to make sure that we deliver for the people of Lochaber and get things like the Belford Hospital, not only being something we talk about, but something like the West Link Road that we can actually see and we can see in action. So that's why I think people should vote for me, because I'll make sure that I put my energies into making sure those kinds of things are delivered.
Okay, brilliant. Very, very admirable. Good stuff. Yeah, we do need this in Lochaber, and we know we're all very provincial. But as you know, like you said, with the energy bills, we've all got that same problem. But here, instead of particularly around Port William and stuff, we have some transport issues and hospital issues and stuff. But thank you very much for your time today, Drew. And we will look forward to seeing you on the hustings and putting you up against some questions from the public.
I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, I'll say goodbye now then, Drew, and I'll stop the recording, and we'll see you next Thursday.
See you then. Cheers.
Brilliant.